If you haven't been to the Fort Garland Museum in a while, I think this is an excellent opportunity to see how the museum is changing, how it's continuing to develop and incorporate new stories. Fort Garland in the late 1800s was situated, obviously as it is today, in the San Luis Valley. The San Luis Valley was home to a variety of peoples. Really, it was a place of convergence and encounter among the indigenous peoples. The Utes and the Jicarilla Apache had been here for hundreds of years. The Hispanic population began moving into the region as early as the 1840s, but began establishing a number of plazas throughout the San Luis Valley, really in the 1850s. And then by the 1870s, a number of Anglo groups started moving into the region as well, among them Latter-day Saint communities, both from the southern part of the United States, Utah. And in the following years, an even wider array of peoples began calling the valley home. So it's a really interesting place, a fascinating social environment to understand a little bit about how different groups of people learn to interact, accommodate, and negotiate, in some cases, very different cultures and traditions. We know for a fact that among the events that happened at the fort, there were a number of dances. We know from a letter in 1860 that there was a ball at the fort that involved many residents of San Luis who came up apparently for the night. There was Spanish language music, there was dancing, there's all sorts of carousing, so we know this is a place where a lot of exciting things happened. A few years later though, in the middle of the Civil War, we know it was soldiers from Fort Garland who probably instigated the famous Espinosa brothers to take up arms against Anglo settlers throughout Colorado. And so as much as Fort Garland is part of a story of a mixing of cultures, it's also linked to a story of conflict. And so the new Fort Garland Museum really offers a way for us to juxtapose some of those different histories and talk about how very complex and in some cases messy the past really was. Beginning about early 2017, there was an effort by History Colorado to start reimagining a number of the museums in the southern part of the state, among them the Fort Garland Museum, to imagine how to modernize some of the exhibits that existed here and add some new content that had previously been lacking, incorporating more stories, among them a more robust discussion of the Buffalo Soldiers, discussion of more indigenous history of the region. In April of 2017, there was a symposium convened in Pueblo that included a number of scholars from across the country who really tried to situate Southern Colorado in the context of a larger Borderlands narrative. As part of the larger rollout of the Borderlands of Southern Colorado project, the Fort Garland Museum, along with the Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area, launched a pretty impressive series of talks and public lectures. This speaker series included nationally recognized scholars and a number of persons whose experience was situated more locally to really try to unpack the very complex history into which the Fort Garland Museum figures. I think one of the exciting things about where we are with the story as it's being retold now is that we get to show how different events really serve to offer some contrast in terms of how we think about the past and some of the many complexities involved. This video was created by the Sangre de Cristo National Heritage Area as part of their work in historic preservation and telling the stories of our community. Thanks for watching.